Number 1. What if Kobe Bryant stayed with the Charlotte Hornets on draft night? High school basketball star Kobe Bryant was drafted with the 13th overall pick in the 1996 draft by the Charlotte Hornets, but was immediately traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Vlade Divac. That same offseason, the Lakers signed the most dominant player ever in Shaquille O'Neal, and along with Bryant, would become one of the greatest 1-2 punch in league history. Divac had a solid career, averaging close to 12 points a game and even made an All-Star appearance. But Kobe became a Hall of Famer, top 75 player of all time, and perhaps the second greatest shooting guard to ever play the game of basketball, only behind Michael Jordan. While nothing is of course guaranteed, had he not been traded, the 5 championships that Kobe Bryant helped bring to Los Angeles would have instead changed the outlook of a Hornets franchise who basically gave away a future NBA legend. Number 2. What if Minnesota hadn't passed on Steph Curry twice in the 2009 draft? The Minnesota Timberwolves made not just one, but 2 mistakes at the 2009 NBA draft. With Stephen Curry still on the board and having a void to fill at the point guard position, the Timberwolves used the 5th and 6th picks of the draft on Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. It may not come across as too big of a deal now, considering Minnesota is on the rise again these days with Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns leading the team, but Curry is a 4-time NBA champion and back-to-back league MVP, one of which is unanimous. Curry could have been part of a duo alongside big man Kevin Love, and assuming they excel together, would basically dominate the Western Conference for the better part of a decade instead of the Golden State Warriors. LeBron potentially wouldn't have returned to Cleveland without the presence of Love, and Durant perhaps would have stayed in OKC, an interesting domino effect that could have went down had the Minnesota Timberwolves drafted the babyface assassin back in 2009. Number 3. What if the Chris Paul trade to the Lakers wasn't vetoed? On December 8, 2011, right when the NBA was scheduled to return following a lockout, a 3-team trade that sent Chris Paul to the Los Angeles Lakers was vetoed by Commissioner David Stern. Stern, who was acting as the team president since the NBA actually owned the Hornets, went against the trade for what he called basketball reasons. The proposed trade would have sent CP3 to the Lakers, Pau Gasol to the Rockets, and New Orleans would receive Lamar Odom along with several other role players and draft picks. The Lakers, had the trade been successful, would possess a big 3 of Kobe, CP3, and Andrew Bynum, while still having a chance to sign Dwight Howard the following offseason. With a prime Chris Paul running the point, Kobe doesn't have to shoulder the load and suffer an Achilles tear, extending his career and possibly winning several more championships for the Lakers, while also leaving a major impact on CP3's legacy. Number 4. What if Tim Duncan signed with the Orlando Magic in 2000? In the summer of 2000, Tim Duncan, who was 1 year removed from winning his first NBA championship and Finals MVP, had become a free agent. The Orlando Magic cleared a ton of cap space and acquired 4-time All-Star Grant Hill along with rising star Tracy McGrady, and pretty much had Tim Duncan sold on signing with the team. According to Grant Hill, coach Doc Rivers didn't allow significant others to travel on the team plane, something that wasn't an issue under head coach Greg Popovich, and Duncan returned to San Antonio. Perhaps a big 3 of Duncan, McGrady, and Hill accomplished more than Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, as on paper the former is more skilled, but Hill and T-Mac's careers didn't exactly pan out the way they had hoped due to injuries. Regardless, the Eastern Conference of the early 2000s wasn't exactly on par with the teams out west, and the Magic easily would have booked several tickets to the NBA Finals. Orlando with Duncan, Hill, and T-Mac versus Kobe and Shaq, or even the Steve Nash-led Suns would have been entertaining. However, the Magic lost out on an all-time great and their chance of being a dynasty. Number 5. What if Len Bias didn't overdose? Len Bias went 2nd overall in the 1986 NBA draft to a Boston Celtics team that just won the NBA championship with Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, and Kevin McHale. Bias was considered one of the most complete players ever coming out of college, as he could score, rebound, and pass well. Longtime Duke head coach Coach K once said that the 2 best players in ACC history were Michael Jordan and Len Bias. Bias unfortunately passed away just 2 days after being drafted by the Boston Celtics due to a cocaine overdose while in his dorm with some teammates. If not for his untimely death, Bias, a 6'8", 220-pound explosive athlete, would have allowed the Celtics' Big 3 room to extend their dominance of the 80s. At the time, Larry Bird would have back problems, and with a young star in Len Bias on the roster, the Celtics could have beaten the Los Angeles Lakers in the 1987 Finals, where they lost in 6 games. as we never got to see him touch an NBA court, Bias's passing is one of the saddest all-time sports tragedies. Number 6. What if Michael Jordan didn't retire to play baseball? Michael Jordan shocked the world when he retired from the NBA in 1993. Jordan and the Bulls were physically and mentally exhausted after 3 straight title runs, and he was dealing with the death of his father at the time. Many believe Jordan's retirement was a suspension due to gambling, and he wouldn't make his return to the NBA until 1995 after he decided to play baseball. During his absence, Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets would capture 2 NBA championships in 1994 and 1995, leaving many to wonder if the Chicago Bulls had the ability to win 6 championships in a row. While it isn't crazy to think that the Rockets would have taken down Chicago, considering Hakeem was such a dominant force, the Bulls still did well without MJ, even having a 55-27 team record in 1994. Jordan could have well led his team to 8 championships in a row had he not retired, but there's so many factors that go into winning a title, and who knows if his body could have withheld all of those deep playoff runs. Number 7. What if Bill Walton had a long, healthy career? Bill Walton had a relatively great career, as he's a Hall of Famer and one of the top 75 players in league history. His time in the NBA also came with many injuries, missing 680 games while playing just 468, and when he was healthy, Walton was the best big man in the league not named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was a good scorer, an excellent rebounder, fantastic defensively, and a high IQ passer for a big man. At his peak, Walton led the Blazers to the only championship in the franchise's history and even won finals and league MVP. Chronic leg injuries limited Bill Walton's career, and if he actually played for most of that time, the 80s would have been even more competitive, as the Blazers would have been a championship contender in the West alongside the Showtime Lakers. While he did win the 6-man award and another title as part of the Boston Celtics, it's likely a healthy Bill Walton would have more MVPs and a higher spot on the best big men of all time list. Number 8. What if the Rockets had Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Clyde Drexler? The dynamic duo of Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler led the Houston Rockets to the 1995 NBA championship. The 2 Hall of Famers also had a chance to play with the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, early on in their respective careers. According to Hakeem, the Blazers, who had the number 2 pick in the 1984 draft, offered the Rockets their pick along with Clyde Drexler in exchange for Ralph Sampson. Houston would decline, selecting Olajuwon first, Portland drafted Sam Bowie second, and the Chicago Bulls chose Michael Jordan with the 3rd pick. The combination of Jordan and Drexler's speed, plus athleticism, and with Hakeem being unstoppable in the post, helped the Rockets to become a dynasty during the 90s, and the nights when a star wasn't being themselves, any of the other 2 could pick up the slack. While it is easy to say that they would win multiple titles, the players that Hakeem, MJ, and Clyde become would mean it's very much possible that Houston wouldn't be able to afford all of their contracts, and at least one of the trio would have to be moved. Not to mention, each player averaged at least 20 points in their career, so there's no telling if they could actually coexist, and Michael Jordan wasn't exactly the most selfless player during his early years. Number 9. What if the Mavericks didn't trade for Dirk Nowitzki? Equipped with an unstoppable fadeaway jump shot, Dirk Nowitzki is one of the greatest power forwards of all time and the former league MVP that helped the Dallas Mavericks capture their only title in franchise history. As he spent all of his career in Dallas, it's hard to picture Dirk anywhere else, but he was actually drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks and traded to the Mavericks for Robert Tractor Traylor. Traylor didn't exactly pan out for Milwaukee, but a young Nowitzki could have been lethal alongside 2 emerging talents in Ray Allen and Glenn Robinson due to his scoring and floor spacing abilities. Seeing as the Kobe-Shaq duo was virtually unstoppable in the early 2000s, it's difficult to imagine the Bucks with Nowitzki actually winning a title. However, they would have at least been contenders for years to come. On the other hand, the Dallas Mavericks without Dirk would likely continue to struggle until they drafted a prospect capable of taking them to playoff contention, and his absence from the 2011 NBA Finals would have changed the landscape of the league today. Number 10. What if OKC didn't trade James Harden? Kevin Durant is an all-time great and one of the best scorers in NBA history. Alongside him is an athletic triple-double machine in Russell Westbrook, and coming off the bench dominating second unit is James Harden. The OKC Thunder possessed all 3 of these players in 2012, and coming off a finals appearance, opted to keep Serge Ibaka on the roster at the expense of Harden by trading him to the Houston Rockets. Durant would eventually leave OKC, joining the Golden State Warriors in 2016 to capture 2 NBA titles and finals MVP, while Westbrook and Harden also won regular season MVPs in 2017 and 2018 respectively, with Russ having the most triple-doubles in NBA history and Harden claiming multiple scoring titles. If the trio stayed together, Durant wouldn't have bolted to the Warriors, forming a super team, thus making Golden State just a great regular season squad. Perhaps LeBron only brings 1 title to the Miami Heat, as OKC would have learned learn from their previous mistakes by winning multiple championships, and the trio of Durant, Westbrook, and Harden cement their status as the best dynasty in NBA history and go down as the greatest big three of all time.